Yuna opened her eyes slowly. Her head hurt like someone had hit it with a hammer. The last thing she remembered was a bright light outside the ship window. Then nothing. She sat up and looked around. This was not her ship. The room was white. Everything was white. The walls, the floor, the ceiling. There was a small bed, a table, and a strange box in the corner that made a soft humming sound. The air smelled clean but wrong, like a hospital mixed with something chemical. "Dohan?" She called out. A groan came from the other side of the room. Dohan was lying on the floor, slowly waking up. He pushed himself up and rubbed his eyes. "Where are we?" he asked. "I don't know," Yuna said. She walked to the wall and touched it. It felt smooth and cold, like glass but stronger. She knocked on it. The sound was dead, flat. Whatever this material was, it was very thick. Dohan stood up and walked around the room. He was an engineer, always looking at how things worked. He examined the humming box first. "This is some kind of air system," he said. "It's making oxygen for us." "So whoever took us wants us alive," Yuna said. "For now." They spent the next hour exploring their prison. The room was about 20 meters wide and 30 meters long. There was fake grass on part of the floor and a small pool of water that tasted strange but seemed safe. In one corner, there was something that looked like a tree, but when Dohan touched it, he knew it was made of plastic or something similar. "They're trying to copy Earth," Yuna said, "but they don't really understand it." A loud sound made them both jump. Part of the white wall suddenly became clear, like a window. On the other side, they saw something that made their hearts stop. It was not human. The creature was huge, maybe 3 meters tall. Its body looked like a jellyfish, soft and see-through, with blue and purple lights moving inside it. It had no face that they could recognize, but somewhere near the top, there were 3 dark spots that might have been eyes. More creatures stood behind it. These ones were different. Some had hard shells like insects. Others had too many arms. One looked almost like a lizard standing on 2 legs. They were all watching Yuna and Dohan through the glass. The jellyfish creature moved closer to the window. A voice came from somewhere, speaking in a language they didn't understand at first. Then, slowly, the words became clearer, like a radio finding the right station. "Welcome, specimens," the voice said. "I am the curator. You have been collected for the infinite catalog." Yuna stepped forward. "What is this place? Why did you take us?" "You are in the finest collection of primitive species in the galaxy," the curator said. His voice was calm, almost bored. "Your kind was recently discovered. You are rare, valuable. Many wish to observe you." Dohan's hands became fists. "We're not animals. All species say this," the curator replied. "Yet here are, in a habitat designed for your comfort. You will be fed. You will be given puzzles to solve. Visitors will come to watch you. In time, you will accept your place." The window became white again. The aliens were gone. Yuna and Dohan stood in silence for a long moment. "A zoo," Dohan finally said. "We're in an alien zoo." Over the next few days, they learned more about their prison. Food came through a small opening in the wall. Strange cubes that tasted like nothing but kept them full. Water came from the pool. The temperature was always the same, not too hot, not too cold. And the visitors came. Every few hours, the wall would become clear, and different aliens would stand on the other side, watching. Some took pictures with devices Yuna didn't recognize. Others talked to each other and pointed at the humans. A few knocked on the glass, trying to make Yuna and Dohan react. At first, Yuna felt angry. Then she felt scared. But by the 3rd day, she felt something else. Something cold and sharp. She felt curious. "They're watching us," she told Dohan on the 4th night. "But we can watch them too." Dohan looked at her. What do you mean? Every species that visits, we study them. We learn their behaviors. We find their patterns. We understand them better than they understand us. Dohan smiled slowly. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had just found a weapon. They think we're the exhibit, he said. But maybe we're the ones doing the real observation. From that day on, everything changed. When the aliens came to watch, Yuna and Dohan watched back. They did not scream. They did not cry. They did not pace around the room like frightened animals. They sat calmly, studying every visitor, noting every detail. The curator noticed. In his private quarters, he opened his log and began to record. Day 7 with the Terran specimens. Something is wrong. They do not behave like captured primitives. They do not panic. They do not beg. Instead, they sit and observe. They watch us with calm eyes, as if we are the ones on display. I find this concerning. More observation is needed. He ended the recording and looked at the screen showing the human enclosure. Yuna was sitting by the fake tree, her eyes fixed on the observation window. She couldn't see him through the one-way glass, but somehow it felt like she could. 2 weeks passed inside the White Room. Yuna had stopped counting the hours. Time meant nothing here. There was no sun, no night, no change. But she had found something better than time. She had found purpose. Every day, she sat near the observation window and watched. She had torn a piece of fabric from her shirt and used a sharp edge from the feeding box to scratch marks into the floor. Each mark was a species. Each note was a detail. The insect creatures visited every 3 days. They always came in groups of 4. They clicked their jaws when excited and rubbed their front legs together when nervous. They were afraid of sudden movements. The lizard creatures came alone. They stood very still and watched for exactly 20 minutes before leaving. They never blinked. They seemed proud, maybe even arrogant. The small furry ones with 6 eyes came only once. They pressed their faces against the glass like children at an aquarium. They seemed kind, harmless. Yuna wrote everything down in her mind. She was building a database of the galaxy, one visitor at a time. Dohan had his own project. He spent his days studying the room itself, the feeding box, the air system, the water recycler. He pulled apart anything he could reach and put it back together before the curator noticed. The technology is advanced, he told Yuna one evening. But it's not magic. It follows rules. Physics still works the same way. If I can understand how their systems work, maybe I can find a weakness. On day 15, something new happened. A tapping sound came from the wall. Not the observation wall, but the side wall. Tap, 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 tap. Yuna pressed her ear against it. The tapping came again. It was a pattern. Someone's on the other side, she whispered. She tapped back. 3 quick taps. The response came immediately. 3 quick taps, then 2 slow ones. Over the next 3 days, they developed a code. It was slow and difficult, but Yuna was patient. She had nothing but time. The person on the other side was named Jiwoo. She was Korean-American, a marine biologist who had been studying deep ocean life when her submarine was pulled up by a beam of light. She had been in the zoo for 3 months. 3 months. The thought made Yuna's stomach turn, but Jiwoo had not wasted her time. She had learned things. She had listened to the guards, and slowly, she had started to understand their language. She shared what she knew through the tapping code. The station was called the Infinite Catalog. It held specimens from over 200 planets. The curator was part of a species called the Valoran. They believed they were the most advanced beings in the galaxy. They collected primitive species the way humans collected butterflies. They think we're insects, Dohan said when Yuna told him. His voice was flat, but his eyes burned with anger. Good, Yuna replied. Let them keep thinking that. On day 18, the curator introduced something new. Puzzles. A section of the floor opened, and a complex device rose up. It had buttons, levers, and colored lights. A voice explained that this was an enrichment activity designed to test their intelligence. If they solved it, they would receive a reward. The reward was a piece of fruit. Real fruit, not the tasteless cubes. Yuna solved the puzzle in 4 minutes. The next day, a harder puzzle came. She solved it in 3 minutes. The day after that, an even more complex one. 2 minutes. Through the observation window, Yuna could see the curator watching. His jellyfish body pulsed with colors she was learning to read. Blue meant calm. Yellow meant interest. Red meant concern. He was glowing red. That night, Jiwoo tapped an urgent message. They are scared. You are solving puzzles faster than any species in their records. They do not understand how. Yuna smiled in the darkness. Good. Let them wonder. But she knew they needed more than wonder. They needed a plan. Don had been working on the air system for days. He finally found what he was looking for, a maintenance panel hidden behind the water recycler. It was small, barely big enough for a person to fit through. But it was a way out of the room. I can open it, he said. But we need to know what's on the other side. We need a map. Yuna thought about this. Then she had an idea. The next time a puzzle came, she didn't solve it immediately. Instead, she pretended to struggle. She walked around the room, looking lost. She studied the walls carefully, as if searching for clues. What she was really doing was memorizing. The observation window became clear at different times. Through it, she could see hallways, doors, other enclosures. She noted everything. Guard patrol times, door locations, the path to what looked like a docking bay. Over the next week, she built a map in her mind. Then, using the sharp metal edge from the feeding box, she scratched it into the floor beneath her bed, where the cameras couldn't see. But someone did see. His name was Tail. He was a young researcher, part of an insectoid species with large eyes and thin arms. His job was to monitor the human specimens and report any unusual behavior. He saw Yuna scratching the floor. He saw the map taking shape. He understood what it meant. He should have reported it immediately. That was his duty. That was the rule. But Tail had been watching the humans for 2 weeks now. He had seen how they never broke, never gave up. He had seen them tap messages through walls, solve puzzles that should have taken days, and watch their captors with eyes that held no fear. He had started to wonder, what if the Valoran were wrong? What if these creatures were not primitive at all? He looked at the map on his screen. He looked at the report button. He did not press it. Instead, he watched, and he waited, because Tail was beginning to suspect that something was about to change. And for the first time in his life, he wanted to see what would happen when the specimens refused to stay in their cage. The plan was simple. Simple plans were the best because there were fewer things that could go wrong. At exactly midnight station time, Dohan would open the maintenance panel. Yuna would go first, followed by Dohan. They would crawl through the tunnel to Section 4, where Jiwoo's enclosure was located. They would free her. Then all three would move to the docking bay. Jiwoo had learned from listening to guards that small transport ships arrived every 6 hours. If they timed it right, they could steal one and escape. It was a good plan. Yuna had spent days making sure every detail was perfect. At midnight, Dohan pressed his fingers against the hidden panel. The metal clicked softly. The panel slid open. Cold air rushed out. The tunnel was dark and narrow, but Yuna had crawled through worse spaces during training exercises on Earth. She pulled herself inside without hesitation. The tunnel was made of smooth metal. Strange pipes ran along the sides, carrying water and air to different parts of the station. Yuna moved quietly, counting the meters in her head. Left turn at 20 meters. Straight for 50. Right turn at the blue pipe. Her map was perfect. Behind her, Dohum followed. He was bigger than her, and the tunnel was tight, but he didn't complain. He never complained. After 10 minutes, they reached Section 4. Yuna found the panel that led to Jiwoo's enclosure and carefully pushed it open. Jiwoo was waiting on the other side. She was thin and tired, with dark circles under her eyes, but she smiled when she saw them. It was the first human smile Yuna had seen in weeks. "I knew you would come," Jiwoo whispered. "We don't leave people behind," Yuna replied. "Can you move fast? I can do whatever I need to do." The three of them crawled through the tunnels together. The station was huge, but Yuna's map was accurate. Every turn was exactly where it should be. Every landmark matched her memory. After 20 minutes, they reached the docking bay access point. Yuna pushed open the final panel and climbed out into a large, dark room. Emergency lights glowed red along the floor. Through a massive window, she could see stars. Real stars, space and ships. Small transport vessels, just like Jiwoo had described. "We made it," Don said. He was smiling, a real smile for the first time since they were captured. Then a voice spoke from the shadows. "Yes, you did." Yuna spun around. A figure stepped into the light. It was one of the insectoid aliens, young and thin, with large eyes that reflected the emergency lights. Tael. Duhan moved to protect Yuna, but Tael held up his hands. "Wait, I am not here to stop you. Then why are you here?" Yuna demanded. Tael was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke, and his words changed everything. "You cannot leave. The station is in hyperspace right now. Those ships can only fly in normal space. If you try to launch, you will die instantly." Yuna's heart sank. All their planning, all their work, for nothing. "Then why tell us this?" Doan asked. "Why not just let us die?" Tael's large eyes looked almost sad. "Because I have been watching you. You are not like the other species we have collected. You do not accept your fate. You fight. You plan. You adapt." "I wanted to understand why. And did you?" Yuna asked. "No, but I learned something else." Tael took a breath. The zoo is not just for entertainment. It is also an evaluation center. Evaluation for what? For survival. Tael looked toward the stars outside the window. When the Valorn find a new species, they study them. If the species is peaceful and weak, they leave them alone. If the species is too dangerous, they destroy them before they can develop space travel. The words hit Yuna like a punch to the stomach. "You're saying humans are on the list. The curator's real job is to decide if your entire species should be eliminated. He has been watching you, testing you. Your escape tonight was recorded. Every moment, every step." Dawn's face went pale. "They let us escape? They wanted to see what you would do. And now they know." Tael pointed to a small device on the wall. "That camera sent your breakout to every screen on this station. And not just this station. The feed went out to 1,000 worlds. Everyone saw humans escape a facility that no species has ever escaped before." Yuna closed her eyes. They walked into a trap. Everything they did had been part of the test, but then a thought came to her. A strange, dangerous thought. "Everyone saw?" she asked slowly. "Yes, the broadcast was live." Yuna opened her eyes. She looked at Dawn, then Jiwoo. She saw the same idea forming in their minds. They had been watched. They had been tested. But now they had something the curator never expected them to have an audience. "If we go back," Yuna said carefully, "what happens?" Tael looked confused. "Go back? You would return to your cage?" We would return to the stage, Yuna corrected. You said everyone is watching. Good. Now they'll see what happens next. She turned to face the camera on the wall. She knew billions of alien eyes were watching across the galaxy. Species who thought humans were primitive animals in a cage. She spoke clearly and slowly. You wanted to study humans? Fine. Watch closely. You're about to learn what we do when we're underestimated. Then she walked back toward the tunnels. Toward the enclosure, toward the cage she had just escaped. But this time, she wasn't a prisoner returning to her cell. She was a player taking control of the game. The curator had never been more confused in his 300 years of life. The humans had escaped. They had done the impossible. And then they had walked back into their cage. By choice, he floated in his private chamber, watching the screens. The female human, Yuna, was sitting calmly in the center of the enclosure. She was waiting. The broadcasts had already reached half the galaxy. Species on 1,000 planets were talking about the Terrans who escaped the infinite catalog. Some were afraid. Some were impressed. Some were demanding answers. The curator had no answers to give. A message arrived from the High Council. 12 species, the most powerful in the galaxy, demanded an emergency meeting. They wanted to see the humans in person. They wanted to understand the threat. The meeting was scheduled for the next day. When the time came, the humans were brought to a large chamber. It was round, with seats rising up in circles around a central platform. 12 alien leaders sat in those seats, each one representing billions of lives. Yuna stood on the platform. Beside her were Do and Jiwoo, and one more human. Her name was Hana. She had been captured 6 months ago and kept in isolation. She was a diplomat, trained to speak for her country back on Earth. The curator had finally brought her forward when he realized he needed someone who could communicate properly. The leader of the insectoid species spoke first. His voice clicked and buzzed. You escaped a facility that has held specimens for 2,000 years. No species has ever done this. Explain. Yuna looked at him calmly. We are human. We solve problems. That is what we do. But why did you return? Because escaping was never the real goal. Yuna stepped forward. We returned because we want to talk. We want to understand why you captured us. And we want to show you that you have made a mistake. The jellyfish curator pulsed with angry red colors. You are primitives. You have no right to. We have every right, Dohan interrupted. He was holding a small device, a data pad he had taken from the maintenance tunnel. While you were studying us, we were studying you. He pressed a button. Images appeared on every screen in the chamber. The insectoid species, the Kellocs, Dohan said. They are afraid of loud sounds and bright lights. Their shells are weak at the joints. Their leaders have been fighting over territory for 3 generations. The insectoid leader made an angry clicking sound, but Dohan continued. The Valoran, like the curator here, they cannot survive in temperatures below 20 degrees. Their bodies need water every 4 hours or they begin to dry out. They have 17 enemy species who would love to see them fall. The curator's body flashed with fear colors now. Yellow and white. The reptilian Veth, the 6-eyed Mora, the crystalline beings from the outer arm. Dohan showed image after image, fact after fact. We learned about all of you. In 2 weeks, we gathered more intelligence than your researchers learned about us in months. Silence filled the chamber. The alien leaders looked at each other with new fear in their eyes. Jiwoo stepped forward next. You think humans are primitive because we haven't traveled to other stars yet. But we have done something your species never did. We adapted to every environment on our planet. Deserts, ice fields, deep oceans, mountain tops. We built cities underwater. We lived in places that would kill most of you in hours. And we did it without genetic modification, Yuna added. Without advanced technology, we survived with nothing but our minds and our will to continue. Hannah, the diplomat, moved to the center. Her voice was calm and professional. I have been listening to your language for 6 months. I understand your words better than you realize. I have heard your guards talking about their problems. I have heard your scientists debating our fate. I know that you fear us, and I know that you are planning to destroy our planet. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Some aliens denied it. Others demanded silence. Hannah raised her hand. You can try to destroy Earth. You have the weapons. You have the ships. But think carefully about what that would mean. She pointed to the screens showing the broadcast numbers. Trillions of viewers across the galaxy. You have already shown our faces to 1,000 worlds. You have shown them that we cannot be contained. You have shown them that we escaped your perfect prison. If you kill us now, you do not eliminate a threat. You create a legend. Yuna stepped beside Hannah. Every species you have ever collected is watching. Every race you have called primitive is seeing what humans can do. If you destroy us, you become the monsters who killed the species that fought back. And every one of those watching species will start to wonder, could they be next? The curator was shaking now. Not with anger, but with something else. Understanding. Hannah delivered the final point. The Valoran have enemies. Strong ones. What do you think those enemies will do when they hear that humans made you afraid? What happens when they realize you are not as powerful as you pretend to be? For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the leader of the crystalline beings spoke. Her voice was like wind chimes. Perhaps we should reconsider our evaluation of the Terran species. One by one, the other leaders agreed. Not because they liked humans. Not because they wanted to be friends. But because they were afraid of what would happen if they made enemies of a species like this. The vote was taken. Humanity was reclassified. No longer a threat to be eliminated. Now a species to be negotiated with. As the chamber emptied, Tail found Yuna in the hallway. Were you really willing to die for this? He asked quietly. Yuna looked at him with tired but steady eyes. We are human, she said. We have been dying for causes since we first stood upright. The question was never if we would die. It was whether our death would mean something. She walked away, leaving Tail alone with a new understanding of what humans truly were. The Council's decision came with conditions. Humanity would be left alone, but they had to send an ambassador to the galactic community. Someone who could speak for Earth. Someone who could prove that humans could be trusted. Yuna volunteered before anyone could ask. Duhan refused to leave without her. After everything they had been through, he was not going to let her face the galaxy alone. Jiwoo and Hannah chose differently. They would return to Earth with the message. They would tell humanity about the stars, about the aliens, about the danger they had faced and the future that awaited them. But before any of them left, Yuna had one more thing to do. On their last night on the station, she gathered her 3 companions in their enclosure. The same white room where this had all begun. The same fake grass and plastic tree. The same walls that had been their prison. I've been thinking, Yuna said quietly, about all the other enclosures. All the other species. They're still in cages. Dawn nodded slowly. I counted 212 enclosures during my time in the maintenance tunnels. Most of them occupied. Some of those species have been here for generations. Jiwoo added. They were born in captivity. They've never seen their home planets. Hannah looked at Yuna carefully. What are you planning? Yuna smiled. It was the same smile Dahan had seen on the 4th day of their captivity. Cold, sharp, determined. We're going to open every cage on this station. The plan took 3 hours to put together. Dahan had memorized the maintenance tunnel system. Jiwoo knew the guard patrol schedules. Hana could read the alien control panels. And Yuna had studied every species in the zoo. They split into 2 teams. Yuna and Dohan would handle the eastern sections. Jiwoo and Hana would take the western sections. They would work through the tunnels, opening enclosures one by one. At exactly 4 in the morning station time, they began. Yuna crawled through the dark tunnels with a stolen guard device in her hand. She reached the first enclosure and looked through a small window. Inside were 3 creatures with soft gray fur and large black eyes. They had been captured from a forest world 300 years ago. She pressed the release button. The enclosure door slid open. The creatures looked out with confusion, then slowly stepped into the hallway. One of them made a sound that might have been wonder, or maybe gratitude. Yuna moved to the next enclosure, and the next, and the next. By the time the alarm started, 47 enclosures were already open. Creatures of every shape and size were flooding into the hallways. Some were afraid. Some were angry. Some were crying with joy. The curator received the alert in his private quarters. His body flashed with so many colors that he almost exploded with stress. What is happening? He screamed at his guards. The specimens, a guard replied, trembling. They're everywhere. The humans, they released everyone. The curator rushed to the main control room. On the screens, he saw chaos. 200 species, all free, all confused, all looking for a way out. His life's work was falling apart before his eyes. He found Yuna standing in the docking bay. She was calm, as always, waiting for him. What have you done? The curator demanded. His voice shook with rage. You have destroyed centuries of work. Centuries of collection. Centuries of imprisonment. Yuna interrupted. You took sentient beings, thinking, feeling creatures with families and cultures and dreams. You put them in boxes and called it science. You sold tickets to watch them suffer. It was for knowledge, for preservation. It was for control. Yuna stepped closer to the massive alien. She was tiny compared to him, but she showed no fear. You wanted to feel powerful. You wanted to believe you were better than everyone else. But you were just a jailer. And today, the prison closes. The curator raised a tentacle as if to strike her. Then he stopped. Behind Yuna, a crowd was forming. Dozens of freed species, all standing together. Some were barely able to walk after years in small enclosures. Others stood tall and strong, their eyes burning with new fire. And among them was Tael. The young researcher stepped forward. It is over, curator. The High Council is already receiving footage of this. Every species in the galaxy is watching. Again. The curator looked at the screens. Tael was right. The broadcast numbers were higher than ever. Trillions of viewers. Trillions of witnesses. He had no choice. Slowly, his body colors faded to a defeated gray. He lowered his tentacle and floated away without another word. In the docking bay, ships were being prepared. Vessels that would take the freed species home. Some would need years of care before they could return to their planets. Others were ready immediately. Jiwoo and Hana boarded a ship bound for Earth. They carried with them everything humanity needed to know about the galaxy. The dangers, the opportunities, the truth. Tell them we're coming, Yuna said as they said goodbye. Tell them the stars are waiting. Jiwoo hugged her tightly. What about you? When will you come home? When my work is done. Yuna looked out at the freed species, at the massive station that was now emptying. Someone needs to make sure this never happens again. As the ship carrying her friends disappeared into hyperspace, Tael approached Yuna. Why did you save us? He asked. I was your enemy. The Valoran wanted to destroy your planet. Why help us? Yuna was quiet for a long moment. Then she answered, "Because you were willing to learn. You saw something wrong and you questioned it. That makes you different from the curator. That makes you worth saving." Tail's large eyes blinked. "What happens now?" "Now we build something new." Una looked up at the stars through the docking bay window. "Something better." 1 year later, Earth received its first official alien delegation. 3 ships landed on the fields outside the United Nations building. Representatives from 12 species stepped out, including Tail, who had become the bridge between humans and the galaxy. They did not come to study humanity. They did not come to collect specimens. They came to ask for help, because across the galaxy, word had spread. The species that escaped the zoo. The species that freed everyone. The species that looked into the face of power and refused to kneel. Humanity. In his abandoned station, the curator's last log entry was eventually recovered. The words became famous across 1,000 worlds. We sought to determine if humans were a threat to the galaxy. We had the question wrong. The question was never whether they were dangerous. It was whether the galaxy was ready for a species that refuses fundamentally, irrationally, beautifully, to be caged. And somewhere among the stars, Una smiled. Because she had always known the truth. The cage was never meant to hold them. It was just the beginning.